Welcome to the November general membership meeting of Hell's Kitchen Democrats. It's 7:03. Our first order of business is to adopt an agenda. And this is what I have so far. I just put it in the chat. The bullet points have disappeared. Oh, well. But those are the items that I have based on what people have asked me. Approval of agenda and the September minutes, which I just saw, so I'll put those in the chat as well for people to look at if they want to download them. You can read the items as well as I. Do I have any additions to the agenda? Now is the time if you have something you want us to discuss, because once the agenda is adopted according to the Constitution and Robert's Rules of Order, you can't discuss anything else unless there's I think it's a 3/4 vote or something, or 2/3 vote. So anyway, all right, then I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion.
Second. I see a second. All in favor, raise your hand, whether digitally or in real life. Opposed? Abstentions? The agenda is approved. And now I will give you all a moment to look quickly at the minutes. Just a reminder that we did not have a general meeting in October. We canceled that because of a conflict with the county committee meeting for New York County. Whenever anybody is ready to make a motion to approve the minutes from the September general meeting. Thank you to Danny for taking all of our.
Next stop, 10th Avenue and West 49th Street.
May I have a transfer, please?
Okay, Kat, I'm gonna mute you there. Alita, are you making a motion to adopt the minutes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and Alex, is that a second?
That's a second.
All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? The minutes are from September are adopted. Thank you again to Danny. Wanted to let everybody know that the executive committee approved an increase in the dues to $25, which will take effect on January 1, 2024. So stealing a little bit of thunder from Heather, if you renew now, you can avoid the increase, or you could just make a $25 donation now.
Today.
And yes, thank you, Marietta. I saw that. Thank you so much. So just letting the membership know that dues will be $25 starting January 1. We're heading now to the district leaders report. Our district leaders are Paul Devlin and Adrian Ford. I see Paul, so I'm going to turn it over to Paul.
Great. Thank you, Christine. Great to see everybody's faces today. Two things to report out. One is on the county committee meeting in October, which caused us to miss this general membership meeting. And the second is the nominating elections committee of the club that I'm co-chairing with Adrian. County committee meeting was held in October. We were very strongly represented, and I want to thank those people who came to the meeting. It was democracy in action. People talk about the legislative process as making sausage. You don't really want to know what goes in it and goes through it, but the output is nice at the end. So we re-elected the county chair. We made some rules changes, notably to change the notice of the meeting so people can have a little bit more advanced planning. we were very strongly represented from HK Dems, and we were seated in the 75th Assembly District with the CRDC County Committee members. And we had a very strong showing across the entirety of the county. We were one of the highest attended in terms of assembly districts. So I was really very proud to stand with all of you who came. I thank everybody who petitioned to get elected to county committee. I thank everybody who then was elected and appointed the new people. And I thank everybody who was appointed who accepted. Anybody has any questions on county committee? I'm always loving to talk about it, but I could talk about it for hours, so I'll stop talking about it now. Second thing is that Adrian and I are co-chairing the Elections Nominations Committee. In January, we hold our club elections to elect our officers and our members at large. So nominations technically open 30 days before that meeting. So in December, the elections committee will put forward names for as many seats as we can possibly fill. And then throughout that month, the nominations remain open until the meeting in January, where the nominations are closed. And at the January meeting, we'll be voting for our new officers and at-large members. During the month of December, the elections committee will issue profiles and information on all the candidates, so people will be informed before the election happens. If anyone is interested in running for any position, whether it's an officer or an at-large position, please reach out to me or Adrian, and we can get you plugged into the process. And that is it from me for today.
Thank you, Paul. And I noticed that Senator Brad Hoylman Siegel has joined us. So I'm going to scoot in some words of wisdom from him and to the rest of us. And also on a personal note, to thank you for your testimony on Monday at the cannabis hearing in Albany.
I tried to channel you. I hope I was doing a good job. I mentioned some of our least favorite establishments, shall we say, in Hell's Kitchen at that hearing. And thank you. Just wanted to drop by and say hello, everyone. What a crazy week it's been already. But that hearing was, I think, significant. We saw just this week the city council act with a bill that seems to allow New York City, NYPD specifically, to padlock illegal cannabis stores, introduced by council member Keith Powers and co-sponsored by our council member Eric Botcher and Gail Brewer, which is really great news. We also learned, there are 26 licensed cannabis stores throughout the entire state of New York. And the estimate of illegal shops is well over 2,000. We couldn't get a number. They say they don't even keep track. That in of itself is an outrage, Christine. I think you agree. But I think that hearing definitely shone a really bright light on the problem. So I was happy to participate, schlep up to Albany and schlep back for that momentous occasion. And I hope we see some action. I also feel like there's foot dragging on the part of OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management, and the New York State Department of Taxation and Finance, which are supposed to be the enforcement entities. They could delegate authority, in my opinion, to municipalities. That they haven't done that. And part of the problem is they're like a new bureaucracy, right? They're a new state entity established out of thin air. So they really just, have had problems hiring and ramping up. And I guess they just didn't expect this surge of illegal shops. Regardless, I think we have something of a roadmap for the near future and certainly for the session in Albany when we return in terms of legislation. I just want to also mention, there's news today about Mayor Adams and one of his top fundraisers having her home raided by the FBI. That is really bad. That's really bad for the mayor because we've seen in these types of campaign finance scandals, let's give the mayor the benefit of the doubt here, innocent until proven guilty. The problem is going to be for the mayor politically. How's he going to clear his name before the primary, which is, pretty soon. And these investigations take a long time. So you could have a situation not unlike what happened to my colleague, State Senator John Liu, when he ran for mayor. And in the end, he was not charged with any offense, yet his campaign cratered because of the innuendo surrounding one of his top fundraisers around the very same issue, which is straw donors. So remains to be seen. I just had to mention that because it's kind of shocking and disappointing at the same time. Third, I wanted to say that I had another hearing yesterday on New York City and State Family Court, which is a mess. I'm chair of the Senate Judiciary Committee, and one of my goals is to make some recommendations to the new chief judge about how to clear the docket in family court, which is years and years of backlog. And family court is crucial because it decides things like custody and visitation, and is involved with city and state agencies that protect children. There's a lot of problems with family court. It's basically a second-class court, and the litigants who are there are mainly low-income and non-white, Black and brown New Yorkers who suffer mightily under a very Byzantine system. So we had a 6-hour hearing yesterday. The chief judge, I'm very honored to say, came for the first part of the hearing. And in the first part, we had women whose lives have been turned upside down by family court, who've lost custody of their children. One woman in particular said that her children are now with her ex-spouse, and the court has continued to award him custody. Meanwhile, when the children visit her, they are battered and bruised and cut. And she said very starkly to us that her ex-spouse is going to end up killing her children and her if something isn't done. There's clearly a problem with the court, and we're going to come up with some recommendations for that as well. And then finally, something that I wanted to mention that came out of the cannabis meeting was my legislation on limited liability companies, called the LLC Transparency Act. LLCs are these secretive shell companies that own a lot of property in New York City, often from foreign investors, oligarchs, if you will. People who are trying to hide money use these vehicles, corporate vehicles, to do that. A lot of the cannabis shops are formed under LLCs, and we did get testimony on Monday, Christine, that if we had knowledge of who the natural person was, the owner of these shops, it would be easier to enforce the laws that are currently on the books. So hopefully that's another reason why the governor should sign my LLC Transparency Act before the end of January. I would love perhaps HK Dems to consider writing a letter to her, urging her to sign it, because we only have a couple of months before she either signs it or lets it lapse, and then it becomes a veto. So thank you.
Okay, well, I think we'll have to ask for some volunteers to maybe look into the LLC Transparency Act and study.
I can send you some info.
Okay, as someone who has an LLC herself, which I do for my freelance writing business, I am very interested in how that all works. Okay. Thank you so much, Senator. We'll now go to, any questions, first of all? Yes, Ruby, go ahead.
I was just saying I know this is off the record, but Brad, how's the boy doing?
Okay. How's the boy doing?
I'm sorry.
Your aide, I can't remember his name. I'm gonna
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you for asking. Jacob Priley.
Jacob,
Thank you.
explain what the story is there, Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob Priley is my former chief of staff. Many of you know him. He was in my office for many years and went to work for a private consulting firm. And while he was in Brooklyn, where he lives, 3 weeks ago, almost a month ago, Ruby, at this point, it was a Friday early evening, and he left his colleagues who were having drinks to meet one of my colleagues for dinner on a city bike and was struck by an SUV. And he is now fighting for his life in Brooklyn Methodist Hospital. He is still unconscious. He has multiple fractures, and they don't know the extent of the damage to his brain. It's still unclear. There is hope that he can recover. Some people his age who have sustained these types of devastating injuries actually have, but the prognosis is just very uncertain. So pray for him, Jacob Priley, a wonderful young man with a bright future ahead of him.
Terribly sorry to hear this, Brad. I'll definitely keep his family in my thoughts and prayers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the political committee report. I did see Dan Cressman. Take it away, Dan.
Hi, Christine. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Just wanted to let everybody know I sent an email out to the volunteers that we had during petitioning, but just so the wider group knows, we've got some great volunteer activities happening on Election Day, Tuesday, November 7th. So 3 options at 8 a.m. In front of Manhattan Plaza. We're going to have a visibility event with Eric Botcher. And for those of you who haven't seen it, Eric does have a Republican opponent who just sent out a mailer to Hell's Kitchen residents. And he's a pretty radical anti-vax candidate. So, you know, of course, the odds are very much in Eric's favor, but we don't want to take anything for granted. And it's nice to get out and hand out some literature and stickers and let people know that they should go vote. Later that day at 5 p.m., we're going to be joined by Eric and some of our judicial candidates that we've endorsed in front of the Target at 44th and 10th. To try to catch the after work crowd that's going to PS 51. So anyone that can join at 5, it would be great to see you there. If you can't make either of those times, we've got some stickers and literature that you can hand out at your own polling place, the polling place of your choice in either City Council District 3 or Gale Brewer's district. So just let me know when you want to go out, what hours, and where you want to meet me, and I'll meet you and give you some of that literature. I think most of you have my email address. If you don't, you can email HKDems and it'll get forwarded on to me. So hope to see you guys out. I haven't seen some of you in a long time.
Great. Questions for Dan? Paul Devlin, go ahead.
Hey, Dan, did you say 8 a.m. at Manhattan Plaza? You're doing it by the entrance at 9th Avenue or in the middle of the plaza?
Yep. So we're going to meet at 10th and 43rd, and then we'll kind of split up down the 43rd Street.
Okay. Thanks.
But yes, 8 a.m.
Sorry, I accidentally muted Ruby. Jackie, you have a question.
My question is, now that we're talking about the election, do we have any guidance about the ballot initiatives that are on the ballot? They seem, you know, fine to me. That'd be something we would vote yes for, but does Paul seems to have some info here.
Go ahead, Paul.
Christine, if you want to, I can. I mean, I'm happy to answer the question. So the two questions are fairly non-controversial. One is regarding bonding issues for the sewage treatment facilities, and one is on education capital funding caps. Smaller school districts currently have a smaller cap than larger school districts. So one question asks if the small districts can raise their cap, and the other question is if they can increase the capital campaign programs, capital programs for sewage treatment plants and extend the payments out for 10 years. Both of the pieces of both of the language went through both bodies of the legislature, so the state Senate and the state Assembly in the 2 cycles. In order to get onto a ballot, that's the procedure. Both of the issues were passed unanimously through both bodies, both sessions. So when I heard that, and I knew that Brad and Tony and Dick were all fine with this, I didn't dig any further. So I voted yes on both.
If it makes you guys, gives you any more clarity also, the Conservative Party of New York is against both.
Okay, so yes on both proposals, and then depending on where you are, you're voting either for City Council District 3 or District 6. That would be our endorsed candidates are Eric Botcher and Gail Brewer. And then not to forget the judicial candidates that we worked so hard for, and that in the judicial convention, we were able to sway the vote to our preferred candidates. So all 3 of the New York State Supreme Court candidates are on the ballot. They're running unopposed, but it's still important to vote for them. And then Andrea Kruger, and remind me who the civil court ones are, Paul?
Andrea Krugman and Dana Catanzaro.
So anyway, you should be pleased and proud to know that these are all judges that many of us have met personally and vetted and helped to bring to this point. So the early voting is happening now, and then of course voting on Tuesday. So be sure and go out and vote. All right, I had membership next, but I don't see Heather. So we're gonna, and then we'll go on to events, but I don't see Carl, but Stephanie is here for Carl. So go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to announce that we have a date scheduled for our December end of the year gala. That date is Monday, December 11th at 6 p.m. So keep an eye out on newsletters, social media, future correspondence for more details on that. I can tell you it will be held at Verse, which is the same location as last year. It's on 9th Avenue between 48th and 49th. And we're still planning. If you'd like to join the events committee and get involved, I'm sure Carl would appreciate your help. I know I would as well. Would love to have you, but I can also tease that while we're planning the program, we are planning some entertainment and some really special raffle prizes from around the neighborhood. So keep an eye out, and I hope to see you in December.
Great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. You and Carl have done a bang up job all year long, and really very excited to see what transpires in December. All right, so that brings us to corresponding secretary, Kat.
Thank you, Christine. Hello, everyone. I just want to remind you that I am the corresponding secretary, and offer up, if any of you are involved in organizations that have events coming up and you want to share them or have them shared with HK Dems, simply send an email to our Gmail. And I may not directly respond myself, but I would forward your email, if appropriate, to the events or politics or membership or communications committees, or to Christine if it's another matter. And then secondly, I just want to announce that in our Gmail, we received an email asking for HK Dems to get the word out that New York City is choosing a city wildflower, and there are 5 contenders. And so I'm going to drop the link in the chat, but I believe that voting closes in 3 days. And I'll just give a teaser that sunflowers are among them. So I encourage us all to cast our vote for a new and the first NYC wildflower. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kat. All right, so that brings us now to the Casino Task Force report, and I see Leslie. Please go ahead, Leslie.
Hello, everybody. So this meeting's going so nice and fast and easy, and this is where it comes to a grinding halt with my presentation, because I wouldn't say it's lengthy, but we are reporting out. We have okay, so the Casino Task Force has met about 3 times over the past few months and have attended different casino sessions, both on Zoom and in person. And when I say casino sessions, I mean there are 3, just as a recap, 3 contenders, nothing official, but 3 contenders that have put forward publicly that they are interested in placing a casino in our area. I think we know them, but one of them is Hudson Yards, one of them is Times Square, and one of them is 41st and 11th. Hudson Yards is Related and Wynn Resorts, Times Square, SL Green, Caesars, and Rock Nation. And the 41st and 11th is Silverstein, and I think it's Parks Casino. So those are the 3 that we know, something could pop up, but those are the 3 that have publicly voiced interest and are kind of pushing forward on a public relations campaign. So when I say we've attended different casino sessions, it's sessions that they have put forward, like, hey, come and see us. This is what we're about. Mostly from the Times Square group. I have attended. I've been on one of their Zoom just to get just a feel of what they're thinking for their projects. We've also, when I say we, the Casino Task Force has talked to individuals and groups in Hell's Kitchen informally to get a wider feel of how our community feels about having a casino in our neighborhood. We've also been very diligent and gathered research through the writings of business experts, socioeconomic experts, and just general current event articles. So let me give you what the Casino Task Force has voted on and what our findings are. So first and foremost, some of you are going to know this already, but what we talked about, casinos are a predatory business, right? We know this. That's like a baseline thing. It's also considered, the casino industry is considered what's called, quote, a downscale business. And what that means is they cater to the less affluent. So despite what people have saying, these are high rollers, yes, absolutely, they'll be high rollers, but the bulk of money from casinos comes from what I said, downscale business. It's less affluent. So that's the bulk of their business. So a casino is though it's entertainment, it's not like a movie theater or a sports stadium, which offers a limited time amusement, right? It's designed to be an all-absorbing environment that does not release its customers until the customers have exhausted their money. At least that's kind of the thinking. I'm not saying that happens to everybody, but that is the model, the working model of the casino. And because the people who most often visit casinos, they don't wander out to visit other shops and businesses. Now, we on the Casino Task Force understand that New York City is a very, very different beast, right? It's not like you're in an isolated casino, somewhere in Detroit or Las Vegas. So maybe this model is not exact, but that is the model of casinos. These also are facts from studies that we have uncovered. People who live close to a casino are twice as likely to become problem gamblers as people who live more than 10 miles away. And as casinos become more prevalent, so has the problem. So 40 to 60% of casino revenue is earned from what is called problem gamblers. And I don't know if anyone's interested in this, but I think it's important to say because there is a socioeconomic and social services aspect to having a casino in your neighborhood. Like I was saying, 40 to 60% of casino revenue is earned from problem gamblers, and those problem gamblers are increasingly drawn from the vulnerable and the elderly. And I do have footnotes. We have footnotes for all our sources, and we can provide those from the studies. So this is we all know this, and some people care, some people don't, right? Some people do care about the social aspect of it. And some people don't. Some people just want to say, okay, what is the benefit to my community, and what are the pros and what are the cons? So let's go through the arguments that the Casino Task Force went through. So there was an older argument that it revived cities. It does not, but this isn't really applicable to us because we're not a city that needs to be, it's not like we're in an Atlantic City or, a Detroit. So the argument that it revives cities, A, is not true. B, doesn't really apply to us, but I just wanted to throw it out there. And according to, I have all my footnotes because I know people will ask, but according to the economists at the National Association of Realtors, it actually, the impact to surrounding real estate is unambiguously negative. Now, again, we're New York. It's not going to be an even a one for one like it is with other cities, but this is the research that we have. Let's move on to job gains and economic growth. So there may be an argument for job gains, absolutely, but you have to look deeper and peel the onion a little bit, because when it comes to casinos, what's been shown as a spike in job gains and economic growth is really limited to where casinos are placed in low density areas. So where it's placed in something that not, there wasn't a lot of action going on there anyway, that's where we see jobs grow. And that's where we see economic growth a little bit. When it comes to cities like New York, it's negligible, because I think that part of the thinking is there would be something in place there that would have jobs. It's not in a vacuum. So we referred to a City and State article that cited a study across 15 years of data and found no evidence of a casino-related boost in local retail sales growth across 39 states. This was a study done from 2002 to 2017. There was another study I looked at from North Dakota State University Applied Economics Department. They looked at short-term growth of casinos in an area and long-term growth, which is 3 years short-term, 10 years long-term. And they found that there might be a slight growth. So maybe when I talk slight, we're talking increased short-term per capita income growth 0.4%. Long-term 0.5%. We're talking very, very small economic growth to areas that have casinos, despite what the people who are pushing the casinos are saying. The studies just don't back up the numbers that the casino and the pro-casino people are saying. So that's what we looked at. Yes, there is maybe economic growth, but it's relatively small. And another component of that is it doesn't include the offset for all the social services or the downsides that casinos come with. So even though there might be a small uptick in economic growth or jobs, I mean, we're talking negligible, but there, it's not taking into consideration the money that you have to put in social services and all the other surrounding services that not only would offset, but it would dramatically cut into that growth. So now we're seeing a deficiency here. So now I'm just going to move on. Those are some of the things. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a framework or insight, what we talked about, and what we took into account. So I attended an in-person Times Square. I guess it was a community relations type of, hey, come in and see what we're about, and that was interesting. I also attended a Zoom by the same group. And there was a narrative, and this is now just me giving some insight. There was a narrative I found that they kept saying, you know, this isn't an argument of whether gambling is good or bad or how you personally feel about gambling, which is true. What they're putting forth is purely their business model, right? But I think if we as a Democratic club or a community club are going to weigh in on this, that's something we have to take into consideration. We have to take the full picture into consideration, you know, the effect on the community. And if that social aspect of it bothers you, you know, that's something that you weigh. If it doesn't bother you, then you don't weigh it. But even though they're not considering it, you know, I think it's on the individual whether each one of us should consider it. I want to get into crime, because crime is a thing that people say, more crime, more crime. So there really is little evidence that casinos themselves directly affect great spikes in street crime. You know, beyond that, you know, that of any other tourist attraction. So yes, if a casino comes in, there will be a little more an uptick maybe in crime. At least that's what's been showing across the board, but not because necessarily it's a casino. It's because it's a big tourist attraction. Like if you put another big tourist attraction there, there would also be a same uptick in crime. It's not casino specific is what I'm trying to say. So again, we're New York. Would it be different here? You know, we're a little bit of a different model, maybe. You know, it's kind of an untested water. So I'm gonna touch on one more point before I go to what the casino people are saying, because I do want to kind of report out on that as well. I'll be honest, when we were gathering research materials, it was very difficult to find numbers or documentation that, or anything that outlined benefits of a casino in an urban area that wasn't funded by a casino backed group. So when we tried to research independent materials, it just didn't coincide with what the casino backed groups were saying. And I tried very hard, because we're really trying to cover all our bases here and be very diligent. But anything that was very pro casino was funded by a casino. At least that's what I found. If anyone has found something else, please forward it to me, because we'll definitely put it in our the Google Drive that we're working off of. So this is the wild card for New York, right? I think overall, there's really no huge benefit to having a casino in your neighborhood. There's a lot of downside, there's no benefit, but this is the wild card with us. And that's the promises, right? So that's where it depends. This is where the casino groups are trying to reach out to us and reach out to the community, understanding that it's a tough sell to begin with. They're saying, listen, we will work with you and we will give you this, or we will give you that, or we will set up security detail in the surrounding areas, or we will clean up trash. Now, this is a very slippery slope, and we discussed this at our casino task force, both in our big group and then small groups amongst ourselves. Even if we do believe in the promises and we do work with them on these, it's a very slippery slope, and the promises come with some red flags. And I'll give one example. I was on the Zoom with the Times Square casino group. This was just a few days ago. And they did say things I thought that was very interesting, very enticing. And I wanted my ears, you know, kind of pricked up. They said something, we are going to provide, or we would like to provide to the immediate neighborhood childcare services. Because we see there's a big deficiency there. And I thought, to me, I was like, okay, I want to hear more on that. So I wrote in a question, can you please expand on that? And they did expand, and they said that they are negotiating with the 2 Broadway unions to provide childcare services for those 2 specific groups. And this is where my red flag, I'm not speaking for the casino task force on this, but this is where my red flag went up, because, and I said in the chat that, well, is that because you want their vote? You want their support? So you're kind of selling them, you know, we'll do this for you, we'll do that for you to get your support? Or is this really a caring for the greater community? Because we're not going to see a benefit of that. And that's just one example. And I do want to open it up for questions or discussions, because I want to hear what you guys have to say. But after all of these meetings and attending a lot of these community, I guess, involvement sessions, the Casino Task Force voted on two things. One, that we should take a stand on this as far as Hell's Kitchen Democrats, and two, that we should vote that we do not want a casino in our neighborhood, and that covers all three casinos. We weren't casino specific. We said it should be all three, because we know that Times Square might affect some of our people, and then Hudson Yards might affect some of our people, so we wanted to umbrella it. But I'm opening up for any questions or discussion, Christine, and then I also want to end with, there is a list of neighborhood groups in Hell's Kitchen, and it's a very lengthy list of groups that are against it, and we also wanted to take their voice into consideration as well. Thank you so much for that. That is the culmination of a few months of work, so I apologize that it was lengthy, but I wanted to be thorough.
Thank you very much, Leslie. And just for the record, who are the people who are on the who worked with you on the Casino Task Force?
Yes, Paul Davis, Aaliyah Lafarge, Jackie. I see Jackie. I see Sandy. I see Alex. Who am I? Kevin. I don't see Kevin here today.
Alita, you said Alita?
Alita, I said, yep. So.
Okay.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yep.
All right. So I'm going to take questions from the group, but I wanted to thank you for that and see who has a question. Let's remember that, we are a group where we try to work together. And so I know this can be a divisive topic, but let's be respectful of the time and energy that the Casino Task Force has put into this, and remember that they don't have billions of dollars or millions of dollars, behind them to find this. This was all publicly available information. So I will start with Paul Devlin. Go ahead.
Hey, thanks for the opportunity. Great work, everybody. I know this is a very hot and controversial topic for our neighborhood and our community. And there are a couple of things, Leslie, that I thought I had sent over to you. The Wynn Resorts in Boston, I think, is a more direct comparison in terms of a city in the US. It's an urban centered casino. And I know there's been some studies on the crime impacts there. And I also know there's a Jesuit priest at BC who is opposed ethically to gambling, but is turned out to be more neutral on casinos. And I thought I sent you his studies too, but it's definitely worth reading. It's much more neutral sort of perspective on it, because I think you're right that New York City is a very different place than, say, Atlantic City or even Las Vegas, right? Like, we have a very different kind of environment. One of the things that I feel very strongly about is that, you're right, they're making these promises. We don't know what's going to happen. And we can't necessarily hold them to be true, whatever they promise us. So one of the things that I want to work on is, if a casino does end up in our neighborhood, that we have the ability to be part of the decision-making process. The elected officials are going to appoint people for every site. So there'll be a different advisory committee for each application for each site. And I think it's important that we become a part of that. And I also think it's important that we, although it's not part of any application requirement, that there is some sort of community fund. I mean, I think that SL Green and Times Square is promising something like $14 million in a community fund. But, and Leslie, this from our community board work together, is that unless there's an advisory committee set up of neighborhood members to control those dollars, and those dollars are fully committed, then, we can't there's no way to hold their feet to the fire. And my concern is that a casino is going to be approved for Manhattan. I think there's a lot of people who are opposing it, and that's, probably a good position to take for a lot of people. But if one comes, I want to be able to be a part of the way in which the funds for our community are spent. And I think that's a really critical component for us to consider.
Thank you, Paul. Axel.
Well, can I just, I'm sorry,
yeah.
so respond to
Sorry.
Paul real quick?
Sure, of course. Leslie.
So Paul, you're absolutely right on all your points, not surprising. We did cite actually the Boston study. It was one study actually, and it was from the Massachusetts Gaming Committee. They wanted their own study, and it was exactly what we found throughout urban area casinos, that there was a small uptick in crime, but it was negligible. It wasn't really, it wasn't a huge, like, you don't see crime going through the roof, which is pretty much what we've seen, what they have seen throughout urban casinos. The other thing I wanted to touch on, and this is also interesting about the promises, when I was on the Zoom with the Times Square group, and I should have written it down because it was going so fast. I was trying to, they were talking about the stuff they were promising, which I thought was actually, some of it was admirable, and I thought it was community oriented. But one thing they said is, like, I don't know if it was for the childcare or there was this something else, but they said, and we promised that for 10 years. And I was like, whoa, wait, what? 10 years? Like, wait, what happened? Like, it's going to be there forever, or for a very long time, more than 10 years. So when they put these caveats in and these red flags, it doesn't give me warm and fuzzies. Let's just put it that way.
Wholeheartedly agree. That's why I think I want to be at the table discussing with them.
Right.
Okay. Axel, your question.
Hi. I'm actually new to the neighborhood and I'm new to the issue, so there's probably a lot that I don't know. I wanted to ask if it was possible to tie to any proposal of an existence of a casino that, through legislation, that they actually fulfill these promises and indefinitely. And I also was curious about the tax revenue that these casinos would generate, because I know that a lot of people were initially against Hudson Yards, and then I don't remember which council member who it was, but they said that they were actually mistaken, that it ended up being a very good project that generated a lot of money for the city. So if it's looking likely, like there's going to be a casino, I'm curious if, instead of trying to delay the inevitable, if there's any kind of way we can work with the casinos in a way that effectively obligates them to offset the costs and the negative social effects to our community.
Okay.
Thank you so much. So there are two, you're both, I'll hit on the first one first. You're absolutely right. I think that's what Paul was saying. If they have these promises, whoever they is, right, whichever one gets it, they have to be tied to it either contractually or with some type of legislation. You're right, that we have to hold their feet to the fire, right? They can't just promise it and then say, well, you can't force us, type of thing. And I think that is a very important point. The second point about the tax revenue. So there's going to be 3 downstate licenses no matter what. No matter what, there's 3 downstate licenses, and people, we don't know where they're going to be. But people are saying that 2 are kind of already, we know where they're going to be, as far as one's the aqueduct and one is the racetrack. We don't know that for sure, but just people are assuming that. The third one is what's really up for grabs, and that could be in Queens. There's one proposed by Citi Field. There are a few proposed here. So the tax revenue is going to come no matter where it's from. So if it's in Queens, the state's still going to get that tax revenue. So if it's not here, the state is not losing that tax revenue. Do you know what I mean? The tax revenue is not going directly into our community. It's a state tax. It's going to be a state tax. So they're going to get the revenue regardless of where it is.
And that was reiterated by Jerry Skurnick in the presentation. Jerry Skurnick from the New York State Gaming Commission gave a presentation to us, I believe it was in July, and he made that same point, that the tax revenue goes to the state if it goes as it's currently set up, and to the city. Some will go to the city, but mostly to the state. Mark Robinson, go ahead.
Great, thank you, Leslie. Really compelling. Thank you so much for all the work you did on that. I just have a question about the scope of the individual casinos. Like for, let's say, 41st and 10th. What are we talking about? We're talking about like a restaurant size, a grocery size, the entire block. Do you have any idea about how big or small this would be?
So that's also a good question because they're very different and they're pitching themselves very different too. So the Times Square is in an existing building. And they're going to renovate certain floors of that building and the top of the building to make a casino. And that's their pitch. They're saying, you know, the building's already there and we're going to renovate it. That might be good for some, you know, if you're in the carpenters union, that stinks, right? You wouldn't want that one. So it depends. The one on the Silverstein one, right? The one, what was it for 40, what'd I say? The 41st, Paul, where is that? The 41st and 11th.
11th, 10th, 11th, yeah.
Yeah, so that is a huge block. That is different, but that's their property to develop on anyway. So they're promising 100 affordable units that are, you know, their first sketches are two, I don't want to say towers, but two apartment building like structures with a bridge between them. And that's totally from scratch. And that's going to include housing, and that's more of a, I would say, a grander scheme building. And the Hudson Yards, I haven't really seen any solid plans. I think they're talking about different things, but each one of them is different, or at least those two are very different.
Great, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Stephanie, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Leslie and Task Force, for your hard work on this very thorough report. And sorry if I missed this. Is there any evidence you found about increase in vehicular traffic surrounding casinos?
So, you know, it's funny that we have a few of our local transportation groups have come out already against it. And they cite studies of increased vehicular traffic, buses, Uber, you know, more Uber usage. So I haven't seen any specific studies just with transportation. I was looking for it, but it's also so difficult, Stephanie, because, like, you know, we can't compare it to Las Vegas, right? Like, it's very hard. It's such a dense, small, concentrated area, Times Square or this avenue, that there's no comps, as you know, you would say in real estate, right? It's hard to find comparables. So I don't have any specific. I can ask, if you want, I can forward it to you. I can ask the transportation groups that have already voiced their opinion on this, and forward you what they have.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Kat, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just want to thank Leslie and the task force for the comprehensive research and reflection. And I mean, you did like a graduate thesis amount of work. I just want to add, I worked at 1515 Broadway for 15 years. It's the Viacom building. It houses, you know, kids television networks, and it's a Broadway hub. And it has very high security. SL Green is a wonderful management company. I cannot imagine having casinos or patrons of casinos in that building. And I just also, and by the way, there are entrances on 44th, on 45th, and behind. The Naked Cowboy actually uses sort of the tunnel that's near Junior's restaurant to go in and put on his fur coat. There's a back door. So it's, in my mind, that building would be much better used for down the road for residential housing if we could get some zoning changed, because it's a beautiful mid-century masterpiece of a building. So I would add that to the list of reasons it shouldn't become a casino. But I'm aghast that they're considering that building. So
I think if there's a question there, it's about opportunity costs. What do we need? Maybe more than a casino I have heard, for example, that if a casino were to go into the Hudson Yards area, that CB4 and CB4 folk, help me out, are concerned that some of the affordable housing agreements that have been made would go out the window. Paul, you're nodding your head. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, the Hudson Yards agreement has a variety of the whole next phase of Hudson Yards. People don't realize that the whole Western Rail Yards is yet to be developed, and that is supposed to be a majority of housing. The portion now is mostly commercial with some residential on the Eastern Rail Yards. The Western Rail Yards are mostly housing with some commercial and a school. If they're going to try to put a casino in there, my question so far to them, and I haven't gotten a straight answer, is where are you going to put it? Because if you're going to take away a single unit of housing, as the chair of the Hell's Kitchen Land Use Committee on Community Board 4, I'm going to be pretty strongly against that. So I haven't heard for sure how they're going to squeeze a casino in. Maybe they're going to take away some of the hotel space they currently have planned. I don't know. But Community Board 4 will have a say on the two sites that we're discussing, 41st and 10th, the Silverstein proposal and the Hudson Yards proposal. And there are a bunch of us that are on Community Board 4 in this meeting now. So our voices will be heard for sure.
Just a reminder that Times Square proposal is in Community Board 5. So, but I mean, one of the advantages of being HK Dems, I mean, although we're not negotiating any of this the way Community Boards 4 and 5 and our elected officials would be, we do span the area. I'm going to Diane.
Wait, Christine, if
Yes.
I may just briefly interject, because my question, I did have a question, which was, might we consider the impact on Broadway theater goers, on families, and on people who work, in the unions on Broadway of having a casino at that particular location? So
I have a feeling Liz Keefe may speak to that. So I'm going to go to Liz and then to Diane. Go ahead, Liz.
Actually, I could, but that really wasn't my question. I'm going backwards in time when I think his name was Jerry. I'm asking Leslie this.
Jerry
question.
Skurnick, yes.
Yeah. He said there's our three elected officials, the governor, the mayor, and Mark Levine, Manhattan Borough president, have to weigh in. And if 4 out of the 6 say no to this, I remember him saying it's kaput. And I know we have this thing that 3 have to be downstate, but where could you clarify that? And if that's the case, then we should be applying pressure on our elected officials.
So each site is going to have a committee, and each elected and representative appoints the person to this committee.
Mm-hmm.
So there's going to be one for the Times Square site. There's going to be one for the Hudson Yards site. Tony Simone will, maybe he'll have one person for all 3, or maybe he'll get 3 different people. And then that committee is going to hear arguments, pro and cons, and they're going to deliberate. And then depending on what that committee comes out with, that would be what the community, I'm sure they'll have hearings and the community will write letters and all that stuff, but that committee is going to be interesting because you know what, Liz, it'll be interesting to see who they place on it, because if, when you see who they place on it, it'll give you a little bit of an inkling into what they're thinking, right? They're not going to place someone on their committee that is opposed to their thinking. So it'll be a little window into what.
Right, but isn't this also another avenue that we should be working on our elected officials?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, Liz, we can't do anything until the club votes.
I understand.
So that's the problem here. This is where we're spinning our wheels a little bit in mud.
Okay. I got it.
Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to Diane and then Alita.
Hi, all. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Good. I remember, and Marietta could certainly back me up with this. I remember 100 years ago going to Atlantic City during special events in my life, and there would actually be, will there be a convention center attached to these entities in Times Square or wherever this ends up? Is there any talk about the Javits Center being part of these, for these considerations. Also, in regard, even with my own experience, because we used to, teachers union, we used to have our conventions at the convention center, and half of us would just take off because we were so bored and end up at one of the casinos. So, and because they would offer food and all that, because teachers are just so notoriously cheap. Moving on, sorry, Danny. Also, finally, I remember the casinos offering bus rides from all locations. And as you left the bus to be dropped off at the casinos, they would give you a $10 roll of coins. So, so there's all kinds of nefarious ways. I see you shaking your head, Marietta. Yes. So, to get, people to spend money that probably shouldn't. Okay.
So is there
just
a question?
my little history.
I got it, Christine, I got it. It's okay. I think, so Dan, I'll take your last one first. Yes, they're gonna, of course, it's a casino. They're gonna have millions of incentives to get people inside their casino and spend their money for as long as they can. But the question about the convention center or anything, so the plan for Times Square, actually none of them, well, we don't really know, but Times Square doesn't have that. They just don't have that space. It's in an existing building. I'm sure there'll be event spaces in that building, but there won't be anything, Javits like that they're going to put on Times Square. It's just going to be a kind of a repurposed building. Now, the one on 41st Street is a little bit of a different story. They have a full city block to pretty much do what they want. Or build what they want. Again, they're not going to build a convention center because there's going to be one right across the street. But yeah, they'll have huge, well, that one at least will have huge big spaces for entertainment and other type of meetings. But I think you're right. The people who go to Jacob Javits is going to, if there's a casino across the street, that's what they're going to roam to, and they're going to spend a lot of time inside those four walls. And then again, Hudson Yards, that's kind of the mystery. That we don't know what that's gonna look like or form or be like or what they're thinking. I hope that answered your question.
Okay. Alita and then Stephanie. And I still want to come back to Liz Keefe about Broadway and theater. But Alita, go ahead.
Hi, this is maybe just like some points of information back to the whole Community Advisory Committee. I think that's something that we should all be thinking about, that our representatives are going to appoint people from the community. I think they're probably not, like Leslie said, going to want to find people that have come out really strongly, probably for or against, because they want to seem as if they're going to appoint people who are impartial. So I think that's something to keep in mind if you're a person who maybe wants to participate in that, and how you make your views about this public or not. And I mean, I guess that's probably in sort of the line of where Paul's been taking us. I think I understand this concept of like keeping your feelings about this close to your chest so that maybe you could be in the room where it happens, so to speak. I also think it's really back to this whole notion that like this is not a done deal, and it's sort of feels nefarious when these, specifically the SL Green people there and Rock Nation, have been the most active in their community outreach, so to speak. But they have a lot of party lines, and one of them is that this is going to happen no matter what. They're also saying, like, making it sound like Times Square is going to happen no matter what, which is also confusing for people who don't really know there's more to the story, and that they're actually the only group vying for the Times Square location. Each location is going to have pros and cons, I think. And until we hear from all of them, we're really not going to have a clear picture of which ones are going to do the least harm and the most benefit if, again, this is in fact a done deal, which I am not convinced it is, but you know, I could just be, you know, one of those people that wishes on a star. So I just wanted to put that out there, and as we're, you know, thinking about how we move forward.
And I think that is something that, you know, all of us have talked about. Do you, you know, sort of assume it's going to happen, or do you, you know, fight against it and say this is wrong for whatever reasons? I mean, I think I actually, in a previous life, when I was working for Time Magazine, I did a fair amount of reporting on the casino industry. Don't ask. It was when I was in the business section of Time, and I was really saw firsthand a lot of the predatory and cannibalistic effects. It's not just of the neighborhoods. The casino industry as a business is super saturated. So Atlantic City did well, and then Pennsylvania put in some casinos that drew a lot from Atlantic City, and then you had casinos in Atlantic City going bust. And so I think there are probably more casinos in the United States than there are. Well, there may be not more than there are guns, but anyway, there's, from a business point of view, I'm not sure how sustainable it is. But there is a tactical question here. At what point, you know, is HK Dems more free to take a position than Community Board 4 or not? You know, I mean, these are all questions that we should also be thinking about. Stephanie, and then Axel.
One thing, Christine, hold on. I do want to. So we in Hell's Kitchen are a little bit in our bubble, and we keep talking about these three. There are other New York City bids that are out there. You know, it's not. It could be a done deal, but not here. There's a super strong push right by Citi Field that Steve Cohen is throwing a ton of money at, that he's going to start new and build a casino right next to Citi Field in a parking lot that is getting a lot of traction. And so it could be that one. So when we keep saying, is it a done deal? It's a done deal. But we're in our little bubble, right? It's not just these three. There are other ones out there that we can, if we decide to, I'm not saying we should or we shouldn't right now, that we can push off and say, you know, our task force decided to, but I'm saying that we should say, you know, not here. Go to Queens, or go to the Upper East Side, or any of the other applicants.
I'm going to call on Jasper because he hasn't said anything yet. Go ahead, Jasper.
Yeah, I have a question for Alita in terms of the statement you made that you don't think it's going to go through. You know something that I don't.
Sorry, I said what?
No, I said you were saying you didn't think, you didn't think it was a done deal.
Well, nothing's a done deal. It's not.
Oh, okay. And I just
I
wondered.
think that's, you know, and actually that's why I had my hand raised again. I think it's just important, you know, for us as a club. I think it is important to get this information out to the community, and like it's, you know, in my tenants association, you know, a lot of people brought this to our attention before I was even aware of it. We ended up taking the vote that we took to join the Broadway League's coalition against the Times Square Hoods Casino, because you know, the tenants came, made a motion, and the majority ruled that that's the position we were going to take. But I think that since then, even, it's really clear that people don't really understand or have all of the information. And I mean, impossibly, like, how could they? It's not like this is on TV. It's not, you know, there's like little newspaper articles, and it's very like, this is something that, unless you're super aware of it, it's not on your, you know, you're not thinking about it. You're not looking into this. You're not researching it. And so I think a lot of people have no clue. And so when a group like Rock Nation shows up with a very flashy pop-up event with celebrities and free food, you know, it can be deceptive for people as they're coming in and trying to find out information. And this looks great. And then they say to them, this is a done deal, just put us in there. Because, you know, of these things that appeal to the person that they're speaking to. So if there's a way for us to, like, you know, inform the community as best we can, I think that's like our duty as a club in general. And again, we don't have all of the proposals yet. Like, you know, I actually was, SL Green reached out to us at the Tenants Association to meet with us, but we haven't met with them yet. So I haven't even heard their like full proposal. I haven't heard the proposal for Hudson Yards fully yet. So Rock Nation is definitely ahead of the game in that respect, but I do think it's important for people to understand what's true and false, even if they don't know all the nitty gritty.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Liz, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to just kind of, I agree with what Alita just said. Nothing is a done deal. Nothing is a done deal. I mean, and I think if it's fatalistic to say it's done, you know, like I'm personally not for this, but I'm going to fight and try and educate the people that I know in my circle about what's going on. And I think we should not give up. I mean, and there's also considering Long Island too. I mean, I've read that too. So, okay, but what I really wanted to say, I'm agreeing with Alita, but what I really wanted to say is, New York City is a beacon for the arts around the world. We are the beacon. We are the beacon at the top of the hill. Everybody from, and I work at Lincoln Center. I work in the Premier Arts Center, and people come from everywhere to take in a show, a concert, a jazz thing, you name it, dance, you name it, they're here. They're not here to come for a casino. I mean, what do we want our identity to be? And we're in this neighborhood. We're in this arts community neighborhood. I personally would like to preserve that reputation that we have as being this, you know, exemplary, you know, city for the arts. And it's not just Broadway, it's dance and it's museums. And I also think, but I have to tell you, so I was just with my sister who lives overseas, and I was telling her about this casino, and she said, and she comes all the time, goes to opera, goes to theater, and she said, oh, I would have to think twice if I knew there was a casino in Times Square. I don't know if I want to go there then. This is a woman who loves the arts. So we have to really, really think about the ripple effect of how that is our major economic draw. It was 2018, 2019. I have to see if I still have the article, but New York State Council of the Arts, and it was before the pandemic, put out an article saying that the arts in New York State generate more revenue than our 3 football teams combined. Okay, it is an economic driver, and I don't want anything to basically minimize that. And I think a casino would do that. And plus, it's like we should be proud of that. This is what makes us unique. A casino doesn't make us unique. And in fact, I think out-of-towners, you know, people from other countries, other states are going to go, oh, I don't know. I want to take in a Broadway show, but I'm not so sure. You know, it's so close to yada, yada, yada. I could see that ripple effect that happening. And I think we should own our identity of being this premier arts capital of the world and own it and fight for that.
Okay. Stephanie and then Axel, and then I think we may be coming to an end of this discussion, but Stephanie, go ahead.
Christine, before Stephanie goes, hold on. I just want to follow up something that Liz and Alita said. I think there's a narrative being pushed. This is the feeling I get talking and being now kind of in this world, that it's a done deal. It's a done deal. And I think that's being pushed by the casino people, right? Because they want people to kind of be dulled to it, right? Like it's a done deal. Talking to electeds or talking to staff members or talking to people, I actually think it's the opposite. I think it's a hard sell. I think it's a hard sell. It's going to be a hard, even they're saying it's going to be a hard sell for, you know, any elected to really give 100% in their district on this. So I actually think, from what I'm hearing, it's the opposite. I don't think it's a done deal. I think it's going to be a hard sell.
And so in that case, a position against casinos would be giving cover as opposed to jumping the gun? What are you saying?
I'm sorry, say that again, Christine.
So if it's a hard sell, would
Meaning
take,
don't give in. Like we shouldn't give in, assuming that it's already been done. In fact, I think it's the opposite. I think we you know, if this is the position, don't be afraid of saying no, 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 because the electeds want to hear what we really have to say, and that's what they're going to go by. If we're already giving up and saying, oh, well, then they're going to be like, okay, well, then if they don't care, who cares? So that's just the vibe I'm getting from them.
okay. So that is a question. I mean, HK Dems is not a negotiator in this. It would be different if we were CB4. So you're saying it would be okay for HK Dems to take a position against casinos because then we'd be informing the electeds. Okay. I see Sandy and Marietta who have not.
Can I ask my question just very quickly? Because I've been waiting a while and then I think it bounces off Leslie's point. So if we don't believe we're a decision maker, I guess my question's for Paul. Like, what do you think the actual backlash or ramifications would be of HK Dems opposing this in a formal way? We're not voting on this tonight, I know that, but eventually either membership or the executive committee will be voting on taking a position.
Oh, I think that I think there are pros and cons to taking a position, and you know, clearly that the position of saying that we're against it reinforces you know, to the elected officials that we as a club are opposed to the casino, and therefore they should represent our voices. So that's one side. But the side that I'm more concerned about is that, you know, I think that there are club members and our club could have a voice in how the money is spent, because right now a lot of the block associations have come out against it. A lot of the other Broadway teams have come out against it. So a lot of people have come out against it, and no one is neutral or no one's for it, or there are people. I mean, I'm not saying no one, but you know, in our circles. And I think that if HK Dems wanted to play a role in the negotiations to what benefits this community, and we take a more nuanced position or a more neutral position, we may have the opportunity to have HK Dems be part of those negotiations to what benefits come into the community. And I know that's the case with 45th, 46th Street Block Association. I know that David Stewart, who's the head of my block association, is kind of taking that same position. He's trying to stay neutral so that he can be part of the negotiations, because that money ain't, you know, like Leslie pointed out, they say, oh, it'll be good for 10 years. Well, the casino is going to be here for longer than 10 years. So the terms can't be for 10 years. They have to be longer. So I think we should just think about whether this club wants to be a part of those negotiations, or they want to say no and stand and reinforce the elected officials that we're saying no, and then step aside and get out of the way.
Okay. I see Sandy, and then I know Marietta, and then we'll come back to Axel. Sandy Nance.
I'm listening to all of this debate, and I'm listening to what you're saying, Paul, especially, and I've heard the point. I think that if HK Dems does not take a vote and oppose this, we will look like we have absolutely no strength in the neighborhood, and that we don't listen to our neighborhood, because all of us on the task force who talk to people found maybe one or two people amongst hundreds who are for the casino in our area. This list that Leslie has of organizations against the casino lists Encore Community Services. I don't know if any of you have been to the Encore Community Services. I have. It's on 49th Street. Does great work for the community and the elderly and senior citizens in our area. And their life depends on the largesse of New York City. And they have still come out against a New York City promotion. And I think that's balls. And I just, if we don't have the same, I don't know. And you can negotiate from a position of opposition. And as a matter of fact, the campaigns I've been on, we were the people who did negotiate. And we were the opposition and the strongest opposition. So there's a case on my side for it as well as Paul's. Christine, would you tell that to Paul? I'm speaking through the chair.
No, I can.
Okay, all right, we're not cross-talking. Marietta, go ahead.
I just want to say that I am totally, what Sandy said, what Liz said, what Leslie has said, I am definitely in support of us saying no. It's that simple. Having come from a place that was destroyed because of casinos, I cannot vote for them.
Okay, Axel.
Again, well, I wanted to say that I appreciated something that Alina said about people not knowing and being kept abreast with all of the latest on the subject, because I don't like to enter a conversation not being knowledgeable in the subject. I don't want to waste anyone's time. But I didn't know if there was like a hub somewhere that had all this information with the latest on what's going on. But what I really wanted to know was how and when any of these proposals were going to be approved. Was there going to be a referendum? Is it solely based on our city council members? What the timeline on that looks like?
So Axel, I would point you, and maybe we should put it in the newsletter again. Jerry Skurnick from the Gaming Commission went through the whole timeline, and it was very clear in terms of the referendum has already happened, that 3 casinos will be allowed downstate. And he went through all the different regulations and so forth.
I see. I've only just joined this.
You know what, Christine, Axel, if you want, that was recorded, right, Christine?
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Axel, if we have your email, I'll send you a link to that, because it was very neutral. It just went through the steps of,
right.
how this is what happens, and then this is the next step, and then this is the next step to approval, and it was actually very very helpful.
How can I make sure that you get my email? Do I just contact you directly?
If you want to say it now, you can. I don't know if everyone hears
Yeah,
the name, but
well, I'll just type it in the chat. I guess it'll be easier to do that.
Yeah, I think
just type in the chat, and Christine will say, yeah, we can send it to you.
the
It's
chat.
also, it's on the YouTube channel. It's on the HK YouTube channel. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even know we had a YouTube channel. Okay, great.
Yeah.
You could send your email. You send your email anyway.
I sent it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, yeah, the emails, in case anybody is wondering, the chats go to me. They're not going out to everyone. All right, I see it's 8:26. I think we've had a very good discussion here. More to come.
Christine, can I wrap up with one thing before I leave? Actually, 2 things. One, we're at a meeting where Sandy said balls, so that was great. I just want to note that. The second thing is that everyone's saying this is controversial. This is controversial. If you talk to people in Hell's Kitchen, it's not controversial. This is not a controversial topic. I mean, and I talk to people a lot. Everyone's saying it's controversial. I think it's making it like there are these 2 big factions against one another. There's not. It is so lopsided when we talk to people on how many do not want it, on the ground people, and then who is pushing for it. So I just want to clear that up a little bit about it being, quote, controversial. It's not necessarily controversial in our neighborhood.
Okay, Jackie.
I talked to different people.
Jackie, go ahead.
Do we have a plan about when Hell's Kitchen Democrats would vote on this?
We do not yet have a plan. Are you proposing a plan?
I think we should have a plan, because I first noticed this whole issue with the casinos, and I brought it up. Maybe I brought it up to Manhattan Plaza Tenants Association. This was like a year ago in August. So this issue has been out there a long time. Our committee, our casino task force, has been working on it since last spring, and there's a lot of delay. We, let's blank or get off the pot. That's my, and I didn't actually say the word, like Sandy was brave enough to say balls. I didn't say the word.
Okay, well, that's, yeah, hopefully we won't have a YouTube censorship banner on our channel. Do we have a plan?
Here, here.
Do we want a plan?
Well, Christine, let me just throw out that there are voting opportunities at both our January and February meetings where we'll have the voting structure set up, open vote, we'll know who's eligible to vote and all that. So at both of those meetings, there will be a good voting opportunity if somebody wanted to.
That's a good idea, but I think we should vote on it as a club.
Okay.
Do you want me to make a motion, Christine, or no?
Well, I think also that you got to decide what it is you're voting on.
Right.
Not just
So
whether
I'd
you're
like
for
to
or
make,
against a
then
club.
I'm going to make a motion that at the next executive committee meeting, we come up with language for a motion to be put on the floor of the general membership meeting in February, and I'll tell you why, in February for the club to take a position on the casino. The
I
casino
would
issue.
second it.
Wait, before I have a
Hold
question.
on, yeah.
Okay,
And
wait,
is
so
that on?
there's a motion that's been made and seconded to ask the executive committee to produce something at the February general meeting for the club to vote on a casino position.
On any casino position, on a casino in,
Well,
you gotta be very specific. I just think we need to be very specific with our language here.
Alita, I agree that there's got to be some specificity to it, but if we get too specific, it's going to be Times
Yeah,
Square
no,
Casino,
that's what I'm saying.
Casino,
You gotta
Hudson
be
Yards
specific
Casino.
about being specific.
But it could be a statement about a casino operator in Hell's Kitchen. It could be a position on casino operation in Manhattan.
Correct.
But I think that, yeah, but I think that given the task force work so far, and the executive committee has had multiple conversations about this as well, that we can kind of, between now and the executive committee meeting, all of us can talk to others and say, what is, between the task force and membership, we can figure out some language that we feel would be best for general membership to vote on.
Okay, so
Does that answer your question, Alita? Because I understand what you're saying, but I don't want to get too specific.
No, I'm just saying, I think it just has to be, you gotta,
yeah.
When you come up with your language, just know what it is, what people
So
are voting.
the motion is to ask the executive committee to come up with a position on a casino operator in Hell's Kitchen at the February meeting. Is that the motion?
No, the language.
No.
Come up with language.
To come up with a language.
Right, because that
we
sounds
didn't
like
yet say Hell's Kitchen.
Because that sounds like we're voting on a casino operator.
Correct.
Okay,
one of.
coming up with the language regarding casino operators
For a vote.
at the, okay, and the question was, and this is part of the discussion, why the February meeting? You said you had a reason for why the February meeting.
Well, the reason is, and I could be easily persuaded to just move it to January, but January is our officers' elections, and our February meeting is on endorsements. And so sort of we're endorsing a position for the community. I just thought it would just fit in better with the theme of the meeting, but I could be convinced otherwise.
I'll convince you otherwise for January.
Okay, but the motion currently is February, and that motion is what's on the table. And that motion has been seconded, and that's what we're discussing.
But Christine, we should talk about why that might not be good before people vote.
No,
So-
I'm not calling for a vote yet. I'm just clarifying what the motion is, and we're just discussing. So
Can't we say January or February?
okay, will the maker of the motion?
Yes, I'll accept
entertain
January
any-
or February, and then executive committee can have this conversation.
And I
Okay.
would still second that with January or February.
All right. Danny, do you understand, for the purpose of the minutes, do you understand what the motion is?
I believe I do. We're going to create the language that will be offered either at the January or February meeting on whether or not we we support or disapprove of a casino in Manhattan at least. Is that the idea?
In Hell's Kitchen.
And we can make it in Hell's Kitchen, okay.
We,
But that idea is that
I don't think we specified Hell's Kitchen. How
We
about
didn't-
District 3? We haven't specified yet.
We didn't specify at all.
That's what the language is for. That's what the exec
And
meeting is
yeah,
for.
the executive committee is going to come up with some language, work with the task force,
Mhm.
work with other members and say, you know, do we want to put forward a vote to say we're against it in Manhattan? Do we want to put forward a vote that says we're against it in Hell's Kitchen? Do we want to put forward a vote that we're against it as a general global policy and harm to society as we all know our world lives, right? Like there.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on this motion? All right, all in favor of the motion, raise your hand or digitally or, okay, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And Lisa Pinto is, I think, probably fallen asleep. All right, it's unanimous. Or you're voting, okay, so everyone has voted for it, so there are no abstentions and no votes. So the motion passes. Great. Our next item is adjourning. Do we have a motion to adjourn? I see, and second?
A second.
All in favor, raise your hands.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody. Axel, welcome to the club.
Yeah, and welcome, Axel.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Welcome.
I'm new here, so I'm looking forward to being a part of
And to
what we're doing.
Shanka's
And I will
December
be
11th,
volunteering.
December 11th, fun party.
Okay,
Yes.
cool.
We
I
give
also
dance
intend-
party.
Axel, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to our HK Dems Gmail, which is on our
Okay.
website.
Okay, I'll do
Thanks.
that. And I'll be emailing with the volunteer opportunities on election day.
Great.
Guys, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Great.
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
That was good.
Yeah. You never know. Democracy in action, right?
Yeah, no, it was good. I'm very happy. Okay.
All right.
We're due for wine soon.
Yes, yes. Okay, good night.
Bye.